You've already automated the work, but now you have alerts, schedules, approvals, different teams, AI agents, a dozen different decisions around when that automation should actually run. As IT ops workflows get more complex, automation teams are increasingly finding themselves responsible for orchestrating at new levels of scale. Enter the Automation Orchestrator. Automation Orchestrator brings a new way to build and manage workflows in Ansible Automation Platform. It doesn't replace the playbooks, job templates, or automation you already have. It connects them into a smarter, more event-driven workflows that are easier to manage and share. In the next 5 minutes, we'll cover 3 things that matter most for infrastructure teams: how triggers come together in one place for more composable, portable automation, how these new logic nodes change routing beyond simple pass or fail, and how AI task nodes let agents work alongside your Ansible automation. Let's start with how workflows get started. Traditionally, starting automation meant picking one entry point, run a job manually, schedule it, or wire up an external webhook. Event-driven Ansible gave you another path: react to events from logs, queues, and monitoring tools. But all of these lived in different places. Automation Orchestrator brings all of your triggers into one single workflow canvas. Manual triggers can be used when an operator wants to kick off a workflow on demand. Scheduled triggers can handle things like nightly compliance scans or routine maintenance. A webhook can start the workflow when an external system like Splunk, Prometheus, PagerDuty, or a CI pipeline detects something that needs action. An event-driven Ansible can trigger that same workflow when an event matches a rule in a rulebook activation. The key is that all of these triggers can start the same workflow. Maybe a monitoring alert detects a certificate that's about to expire, or maybe a scheduled scan finds it first. Either way, you can send both into the same remediation workflow instead of building and maintaining separate automation for each trigger. And here's what infrastructure teams care about: composability and portability. Every job template, role, and collection a team has already certified becomes a reusable workflow node, immediately and without modification. This empowers teams to stop rebuilding automation logic from scratch for each new use case and start composing what they've already built into workflows that can be shared, nested, and extended across teams. When you're ready, export that workflow as a single YAML file. Drop it in Git, share it with another team, import it into another Automation Orchestrator deployment. The workflow triggers, logic, approvals, AAP jobs, AI steps, travels as one artifact. That's configuration as code for orchestration, not just for playbooks. For IT infrastructure automation, that combination matters. One pane of glass for how work starts, multiple real-world entry points, and a workflow you can hand to anyone on your team for their automation journey. The second big shift is the introduction of logic nodes, how workflows decide what to do next. Automation Orchestrator gives you a lot more flexibility in how a workflow moves from one step to the next. You can branch on conditions, loop through a group of hosts or tickets, bring parallel paths back together, or pause a workflow while you wait for something else to happen. But the one that changes the game for infrastructure workflows is the switch node. In classic AAP workflow templates, routing was largely binary. This job succeeded, go here. It failed, go there. That works for a lot of cases, but infrastructure decisions often need more than 2 paths. Think about something as simple as disk usage. At 60%, maybe you do nothing. At 75%, you clean up old files. At 85%, you expand the disk. At 95%, you probably want a human involved. Same metric, 4 completely different actions. That's where binary success or failure routing starts to feel limiting. The switch node looks at a value from earlier in the workflow and sends the automation down the first path that matches. And that value can come from almost anywhere. It could be the output from an Ansible job, something an operator entered, data from a webhook, or the result of an earlier check in the workflow. So maybe you're routing based on disk usage, or the severity of a vulnerability, or the type of request that came in from ServiceNow. You could even have different paths for dev, staging, and production. The point is, you're no longer limited to asking, did the last job succeed or fail? You can make decisions based on what the automation actually discovered, and that's what makes the switch node so useful. You still have Ansible doing the work underneath, but now you have a much more flexible way to decide what should happen next. The third thing I want to show you is where this starts getting really interesting, bringing AI directly into the workflow. And the important thing here is that AI isn't replacing your Ansible automation. Think about an alert coming in with a bunch of information attached to it. Logs, monitoring data, maybe the text from a ServiceNow ticket. Before you actually change anything on the infrastructure, there may be some decisions that need to be made. What happened? How serious is it? What system is affected? And what automation should we run? That's where a task agent in the workflow canvas can help. It can take that unstructured information, summarize it, classify the problem, and help determine what should happen next. And you're not locked into some proprietary AI model hidden deep inside Automation Orchestrator. You connect that AI endpoints and agents that your organization is already using and give them access to the tools and information they need through integrations like MCP. So an agent could look at an incident, determine which systems are affected, find the appropriate automation in AAP, and recommend the next step. But here's the part I think is really important. The AI doesn't have to be the thing actually making decisions in your infrastructure. You can put a human approval step right after it. A human on your team or a predefined codified policy reviews the recommendation, approves it, then Ansible runs the job template or playbook you already trust to make the change. So the pattern becomes pretty simple. An event starts the workflow. AI helps figure out what's going on and makes recommendations. A human can approve the action when needed, and AAP actually makes the change. That's a really useful separation of responsibilities. AI can help with the reasoning and all of that messy, unstructured information, while AAP keeps doing what it does best, serving as the execution layer you actually trust to touch your production infrastructure. So if you only remember 3 things about Automation Orchestrator, here's what I would take away. First, all these different triggers can start the same workflow. Manual, scheduled, webhooks, event-driven Ansible. You don't need a completely different automation path for each one. And when you want to share that workflow, you can export it as a YAML and keep it in Git. Second, the new logic nodes give you much more flexibility in deciding what happens next. And the switch node in particular lets you route based on real values coming from your infrastructure instead of just success or failure. And finally, third, AI can now become part of that workflow in a way that is both useful and trustworthy for IT ops teams. It can help analyze what's happening and figure out what should happen next, while humans provide governance and Ansible continues to do the actual work on your systems. That's really how I think about Automation Orchestrator. It takes the automation you already built in Ansible Automation Platform and gives you a much more flexible way to connect everything around it, events, decisions, AI, approvals, and execution, into one workflow. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more Ansible Automation Platform content. And if you want to go deeper on Automation Orchestrator, check the description below. I'll have links to demonstrations, documentation, and additional resources so you can see it live in action. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.